Our conversation is still going to continue on the World Economic Forum Africa, which comes up next month in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. But today, our focus is going to be on infrastructure. How can infrastructure forge inclusive growth and create jobs? Well, I'm being joined on the program by the President, Nigeria British Association, Mr. Tunde Arogumati. Mr. Arogumati, good morning and thank you for coming in.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me around.
Well, the forum comes up next month, and so many activities have been, building up towards that, and it's finally here. It's the first time Nigeria is hosting it, and first time it's coming to West Africa. But what are your expectations?
Well, it's coming at quite an auspicious time. We just had a centenary where we have kind of recalibrated our nationhood. First 100 years, we're moving forward. We just had our GDP rebased, which has brought into clearer focus what I'll call our strengths, and also it has brought into focus our deficits, paramount amongst which are infrastructure, as you're aware. By our size, sheer size, we are supposed to have overtaken South Africa, but I think we should look at the comparisons very properly so that we can put our expectations in perspective. South Africa produces about 45,000 megawatts, which is about 10 times what we produce at our highest functional capabilities, and it has 1/3 the size of our population. So the first thing to think about is, first and foremost, where do we go on this? That is one of the major things, which is a restricting factor. And also, we are talking about all-inclusiveness. We are looking at a situation whereby things like electricity, highways, supportive infrastructure, and telecoms, and all this are brought to the people and are inclusive of the people. The beauty about it all is that infrastructure in its very self, if well generated all over the country, would include practically everybody. So what I think the Economic Forum would do is, since it's a regional forum on the African point of things, we can look first and foremost at our immediate communities and environment, as in from the local government, state governments, Nigerian government, and also working along the West African sub-regional grouping, and also Africa as a whole. So my expectation is for us to be able to sit down together, politicians, businessmen, government officials, which is about the and civil society, to sit down to key ourselves into the right positions in which we are, get our value chain properly sorted out, see where we come in, and then start to realistically approach these problems on every angle, on every item.
Well, there's been this argument that infrastructural deficit in Nigeria is more of a project management thing, not funding. Funding contributes to it, but then management of it.
Yeah, management to the extent that, well, I think looking at it more holistically, it's a mindset thing. It's a situation whereby we have to look at the entirety of our nationhood from the political perspective, from the social perspective, from the business perspective, or as you want to. And where I think there's a disconnect is the political will, as so to speak, whereby we have a situation. All these things we know. We just had the Nigerian Economic Summit. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group, which interestingly enough is supporting or is part of this economic forum, or partly is running it, or from the Nigerian side of things, has over time come up with various solutions and things, and has been working assiduously. But you see, the thing is the element of convergence. Convergence, for instance, a good example, for instance, even in talking about electricity, I've been reading in the Business Day for the past 3 days about a problem they have in Aba, whereby the geometric company has already got infrastructure on ground, but cannot run it because of vested interests that are stopping it from running for some interest or the other. And you see, the essence is, when you're talking about inclusiveness, yes, at this level, you will have the big boys, or so to speak, talking about things, but how does it trickle down? How does it include the SMEs? How does it include the man on the streets? How does it include everybody? How does it impact on them, right? The essence of having big organizations alone is not going to sort it out. Along the value chain, you have to have connects with the SMEs. You have to have connects with practically as many people as possible that can benefit, because the essence of this forum is to enable us to use our resources in such a way that it will impact on so many people at the same time and make a difference to their lives all across the spectrum.
Well, Mr. Arogumati,
Yeah.
let me, this isn't the first time such
Yeah.
a forum is going to be coming up.
Yeah.
Although this is the first time Nigeria is going to be hosting it.
Yeah.
This is the 25th edition. So there's been
Yeah.
24 others before now.
Yeah.
A lot of people say it's just all about talk.
Yeah.
Which means that for the last 24 editions that have been held, World Economic Forum on Africa, a lot of people have just been talking, and there's been no implementation of all the talks they've been talking. So what's going to make this one any different?
First and foremost, if we, I'm sorry to say, we have any common sense, we would leverage it. It's been held 17 times in South Africa, and I can assure you that South Africa has used it sensibly. It has, you can say that the way the economy is run, they've got investments in there, they've got stuff in there, you can't say it's not happened. So it's for us to have the political will to agree. Let's forget all this stuff about party politics and stuff. In fact, party politics has to change, because at the level at which we operate, the federal government should connect with the state governments, even especially what they term to be opposition state governments. Because if I were to be a strategist, I would rather use resources to positively impact my opposition environment, to buy them to my side, than do otherwise. So the essence for us here is there's no rocket science involved here. It has nothing really to do. We know we have the people there. We have the Bismarck Rivanis, we have the Agbaches, we have, name them, they know what's happening. The thing is for us to sit down and come back to the level of common sense. As far as I'm concerned, that's where it is. So for us to use it sensibly, it's left to us to leverage on it, or just to waste our money on a jamboree. But I do believe that we are now in a situation, like I said, judging from so many things happening at the same time. We just had a centenary, we just rebased our economy, and the government is under pressure to perform. And we have national conference going on whereby we're reorganizing our national structure. I think it would only make sense if some of us sit down, and I keep on calling it, it's just a matter of common sense. It's no big deal. Just sit down and key into these things positively and use it to impact as many lives as possible. It's not going to cost you anything.
But you see, we're in a pre-election year.
Yeah.
Fine, we're celebrating centenary. Fine, we've just been rebased.
Yeah.
Fine, we're the largest economy in Africa now,
Yeah.
in Africa right now. But we're in a pre-election year. And so at a certain point, like the guest I had on the program was saying, that at a certain point, government shuts down. Oh, no, it's not yesterday, it was on Monday. Shuts down 6 months or so prior to the elections. And so there's a possibility that they might have the political will. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. They might have the political will to ensure that all the talk they talk at the forum should be implemented. But because we're in a pre-election year, that we're not beginning to see that materialize into something concrete just yet.
Well, I think we should, like I said again, we should keep our politics out of running government and running our society. And also, all of us have a role to play. Like I said, this is not just about government. It's about everybody. It's about social what do you call it? Civil society.
Civil society.
It's about politicians. It's about public sector. It's about the private sector. All right. And in between all of this, there are also other interest groups, right? But at least at the highest levels, those are the people involved. Now, if there's a flagging on one side, the other side can. And I like what's been happening in Nigeria nowadays. We've seen people go and challenge things and say, why we should challenge government? Look, you cannot take your eyes off the ball. You have to do this, and keep on harping on it. Run your politics. Let your political system do that. You see, because sometimes we spend as time that should be assigned to useful work running on rallies and things that are they have essence, but this is not the time for that. Nigeria is in a very critical situation. Look at this security thing. You just my heart goes out to those on that serious attack. There is no infrastructure to support that. For instance, from what we're seeing, it's not enough. So it goes beyond. You got to walk the talk. So if we believe that we're not getting value for our money, then we insist on it. Forget about, you see, it's a mindset thing, like I keep on saying. We have taken things for granted. We sit back and say, oh, let them do it. It's not them, it's us. So if they're not doing it, you've got to get them to do it.
So who should be the driver now, the private sector or the government?
I think it's a joint effort, really. But in case one is falling short, the other should kick in and make sure that's the essence of balance. But I think the onus lies more on the private sector when you come to think about the fact that the stakeholders are more from the private sector point of view.